I have you now.
They want to mess with my droid. They're going to pay for it.
This is the way.
You may fire when ready.
Blow that piece of junk out of the sky!
The way you're fighting, you wouldn't have lasted long.
Hello there.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
May the 10th be with you. That's when we're recording today. I saw somewhere the other day someone wrote out a Star Wars week, and they said the proper term for today is then it's treason 10. I don't really know what today is, but I know that today we're talking Star Wars because we've got a super stacked show for you today. May the 4th was last week, and we celebrated it big time. And we weren't the only ones who celebrated it big time because Disney celebrated it big time. Disney released a bunch of really cool stuff. They released the Young Jedi Adventures. They released Visions Season 2. They released some other stuff. We celebrated it by releasing a brand new Star Wars RPG podcast, The Wayward Wayfarers. You can find that here. If you're a regular listener, you've probably seen that on our feed. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, you saw it on video. And so we had an awesome time putting that together. But like I said, we had a really busy week because so much Star Wars came out. And today's meat of the episode is we're going to be talking about Visions Season 2. We're really excited to get into it. These shorts and how they connected with us as fans is really important because these shorts kind of connect with everybody differently. They connect with all different kinds of fans. Like I said, there were 7 episodes of the Young Jedi Adventures series dropped today, and Lucasfilm released another Simpsons short. Those are always super funny. Those are always super great. That's how I want to start today, is I want to ask the animated and Zelen himself, Colin Archer, did you watch the new Simpsons short? What'd you think of the new Simpsons short?
I did watch the new Simpsons short. I immediately turned it on after finishing Vision Seasons 2, and it had me captivated. It was funny. It was constant jokes. It wasn't very long. It was, what is it, 3-4 minutes?
5 minutes. It's 5 minutes total.
So all the jokes were funny. They're real Simpsons-esque. You know, The Simpsons has been on a long time. I grew up watching it. It's always been controversial, but these things are not. They're whimsical. It's Maggie Simpson, the baby, doing funny things and a bunch of Star Wars jokes, if you will. It's hilarious. I had a lot of fun watching that.
It was funny. I liked it. It was up to date with The Mandalorian. It was just like, you know, The Simpsons has been around a long time. It's a really good show. I've only ever seen episodes here and there, but I know that I like it. I know that The Simpsons isn't bad. And so it was really cool to get to see the short. I liked the old short that they did, and I'm excited that they continue to do these. It's super funny. And the creator of Simpsons is a Star Wars fan.
Yeah. But I'm looking forward to today. You know, we look forward a lot for Vision Season 2, and there's a lot going on here. 9 episodes again, right? Same as last time?
Yes, yeah, you're right. 9 episodes, all by different studios and different art styles this time. Vision Season 2 did not tread the same path that Vision Season 1 did, just being Japanese studios delivering it to you in the anime style. Now we're dipping into new art styles, and we're dipping into new storytelling devices, and it was fun. I mean, it was really cool to get to see, and all different countries. Every single episode was made by a different country, and it's cool because Star Wars is such a worldwide phenomenon. You know, we had Celebration this year in London. In 2 years, it's going to Japan, and so it's really cool to get to see all of the Star Wars fans all over the globe.
Yeah, and
make the
all of the stories were really unique, and so much. It covered such a broad thing. You know, not being just Japanese animation, how broad it was so fun to get to see all these different things. That's why Visions is so good, if you ask me.
I think that's the one thing you can say about all these episodes because, you know, Colin, these, you know, you and I talked a little bit about this over the course of the week, and not every single one of these episodes was for us as fans. We might have had a couple episodes that we didn't particularly enjoy near as much as the others, but the one bad thing that you can't say about any of these is the art style. And not just the art style, but the way it's made and the way it looks and the painstaking quality that every studio took to produce one of these. It's clear throughout them.
Yeah, they're over the top with how cool looking they are. It's an understatement even just to say that.
Yeah, it absolutely is. I think we can jump right into the first one because it's one of the most visually stunning, and that is the episode Sith. It's by El Guri, a studio in Spain that's done a lot of work on some Pixar projects like WALL-E and Finding Nemo. And so that's the animator's background here. And like I said, this one was just, knocked out of the park, good-looking art. If you watch the behind-the-scenes stuff, they filmed some of those paint droplets. They filmed actual paint droplets to see how to recreate that in animation, what paint would do in water in animation.
Yeah, very fun.
Visually, this episode was one of the most stunning.
Yes, it was. Yeah, and it was the first one. It's kind of a contrast to Vision Season 1. Both visually stunning, but that story in Season 1 like really drew you in. This one, it took a minute to get where it wanted to go. I wouldn't call the story bad, but I wasn't glued to my screen like I was in the first episode of Season 1 either.
I agree. This one did not. I don't know if I would have put it at the beginning because it didn't captivate me story-wise. I didn't feel, and there's going to be a theme in a couple of these, I didn't feel immersed in the Star Wars universe with this episode. I didn't feel really a sense of Star Wars at all in this episode. The movements, the vehicles, the planets, even the colors, none of it really felt Star Wars-y to me, and it kind of just felt like the interpretation of the Force was, that's another theme throughout a lot of these, is they take a big, broad stroke and kind of interpret the Force however they want. And I'm not here to say that Star Wars has rules. I don't think that's true, and this storytelling doesn't have rules. But you do have a familiarity of Star Wars fans who are going to watch these Visions things, and so when you use the Force in the ways that they are using it in this episode or in a couple of the other episodes, it really takes away the Star Wars element. I mean, this episode to me felt like they just threw a lightsaber in at the end to say it was Star Wars.
This episode and a couple others, an analogy I might use is, in this case, it's a Spanish studio wearing a Star Wars costume almost, kind of.
It's almost like they were approached and said, we'd like for you to make Star Wars, and they had an idea in the can. And this is not just El Guri, this is a couple others. And again, I think these are quality stories. I'm just griping about the Star Wars-ness of the stories. I want to make that distinction because I don't think there's a bad story in this season of Visions. But it felt like they had a story concept. They had an idea. Then Lucasfilm came to them and was like, we want you to make a Star Wars. And they were like, awesome. And then they just plugged their idea into Star Wars and didn't really, reverse engineer it and pull a story out of Star Wars. They put a story into Star Wars.
Exactly right. Yep.
The next one, it is a fan favorite. Screecher's Reach by Cartoon Saloon is an Irish studio. And I've seen people going wild for this on the internet. The art style was, I've seen people say it might not have been as visually stunning as Sith. That's true, but it was really unique. The beginning animation reminded me of a little 8-bit video game. I really, really liked that, actually. I thought that was super cool and unique at the beginning.
Yeah. This one follows children around who are in a work camp. I wouldn't call it a prison camp, but they're children and can't go anywhere. It's, for lack of a better term, they're in a work camp, right? And yearn to be free. The story is actually really good in a sense of following this narrative of freedom-seeking children from an oppressor, which is a good story anywhere. But it's only at the very end that a child defeats a crone who happens to have a lightsaber, and that was a hidden quest, if you will, and we presume, you never said anything, but the lightsaber the main character recovered was red, and akin to what we saw in season 1, right? Like a Japanese style blade, if you will, and a benefactor, I guess, sort of comes down and says, "You have defeated the enemy." I'm paraphrasing all this stuff because you have to go watch it, right? I don't want to do anything. I'm not a writer. I can tell stories, but not like these guys. So go watch these and get the benefit for yourself if you're listening to this podcast. But you know, this is why I was a fan favorite, is because of this, all these themes throughout that people really like. It's cool to see.
It was a compelling story. And it's it's kind of the reverse of what we've seen in the past, where the Jedi come and save someone, or you take a trial before you become a Jedi, like Luke facing Vader, or Anakin being rescued by the Jedi from his fate on Tatooine. And this is the opposite. I mean, this is on the other side of the coin, that it's this darksider who tempted this girl to do this and join her and become a Sith. And it's a really, like you said, it's a good story. I love the story. I'll just have the same gripe again, that this whole story did not really feel Star Wars. It felt like a story with lightsabers in it. I didn't feel like the characters or the Sith were really like, I didn't feel like they were in the Star Wars universe. The ship that she flies in on, it doesn't seem to fit in the Star Wars universe. It's like a flying clam, and it just does not really fit. And just the whole vibe of the end of it, while it caught me off guard, it was a cool story, and it was like a really neat perspective, I just didn't feel the Star Wars-ness of it. But the cliffhanger really did leave me wanting more. I mean, if this were some other universe or other story, or just, Vision's obvious, I mean, if we can learn anything from Season 1 going to Season 2, is these stories are probably not going to get continuations. And so, unless it's in a book like Ronin. And so this one, unless there's more info in a book sometime, this is probably it. But the hanger did leave me wondering what happened.
Well, and people love these new Jedi characters. And if the benefactor at the end is a Sith, which we can safely presume it is, or Sith-esque, right?
It's credited in the credits. It does say Sith. I was super unsure.
Yeah.
In the credits, she is Sith Mother.
Yeah. So I mean, like, taking a Sith apprentice that young, that's very intriguing, right? Another thing I want to say is there's a lot of stories out there, like a children's quest story. The most prominent that comes to my mind is Stephen King's It. The first major portion of the book is children going to stop, for lack of a better term, a demon. And this one is structured differently because there are kids in a prison camp or whatever, but they're going to thwart a demon, and the protagonist has like a calling to it, to this demon, if you will, the crone. And so all of that stuff is really intriguing. In talking about this and analyzing, I feel a lot better about this episode.
Yeah, no, I agree. It grew on me a little bit, and I think that might be the case with all these episodes, is as we kind of, because we haven't talked much about it. I haven't really talked to anyone about it, and so you're the first one I'm having a long-form conversation with. We've barely talked to each other about it, except just, small one-word, one-sentence reactions. Yeah, and so I'm excited to get into the rest of these.
Yeah, and we try and save our personal conversations for the podcast, so we get these really high-quality, raw terminology and phrasings and all this stuff out there for you, the listener, to listen to.
We're not scripting anything. Yeah. I think people can tell we're not scripting anything.
Yeah.
So I thought it was good. Also, one final thought I'll say about Screecher's Reach, because it just came to me, was that the villain, the Sith Mother, really reminds me of Abeloth, which, if you don't know who Abeloth is, that's a Star Wars Legends character that was in a 9-book series called The Fate of the Jedi, and it takes place when Luke Skywalker has been Grand Master of the Jedi Order for like 40 years. It's about his son, Ben Skywalker. Luke leads the Jedi Order on Coruscant, and he faces the father, the son, and the daughter from the Clone Wars. There's another entity, a dark side entity called the Mother, that her backstory is wrapped up in theirs, and Luke faces this creature, this dark side creature.
Wow.
And it's this woman not only looks like her, but is just really acts like her through the first few books. It's a great book series, but it is a 9-novel book series.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
wild.
It's a long one. I read them as they were coming out when I was in high school and junior high, and so it was fun to get to read those. But anyway, that popped in my mind. The next episode, In the Stars, was Chilean, made by Punk Robot, and this one was the only one I might not have been jiving with the art style 100%, and that it felt a little hitchy. And I know it was supposed to, because it's kind of the stop motion style, but for some reason the other two stop motions just felt much smoother to me than this one.
Yeah. Again, if you had to rate these episodes by visual stunningness, this one's going to rank near the top. I think top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the characters are using using their hand and spraying some sort of stuff on there to make some force animated art. It's that whole concept is very intriguing, very fun looking. But this is one of the ones. I mean, the antagonist is the Empire polluting the planet in this episode, and the two children characters are able to thwart all of the Empire and destroy the entire base. And so I guess a way to put it is it's taken some tropes of imperial ineptitude to an extreme that crosses into unbelievableness for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree with you. This one is the last, or it's the second to last one that I'll say probably gets the did not feel like Star Wars stamp from me. Which again does not mean it's bad. The story is again compelling. I really don't have much story beat critique. I have more critique on that it doesn't seem to have the Star Wars feel. And this is the second to last one. I think that this one is the last. After this becomes a string of what I think become pretty high quality episodes. And so, I don't have a whole lot to add to what you said. It's just the story was interesting. It was fine. And it had the important Star Wars familial connection, the no one's truly gone living force aspects of Star Wars. That was totally fine. It just did not have a Star Wars feel to me.
Right.
And I don't really know what it was, because this one kind of reminds me it seems like a story you'd see about Wookiees or Ewoks, because it's a much more primitive society going against the Empire, but it just did not do it for me for some reason.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And so this is the first 3 episodes of Vision Season 2. And when we contrast the first 3 episodes of Vision Season 1, there's a disparity there. In Season 1, they drew you in pretty hard and heavy. Mm-hmm. And in these first 3 episodes, when I watched them, it was kind of dragging. I'm like, oh, well, took a long time to get to this one. Took a long time to get to this one. This is a story I'm not super enthusiastic about. And it's only in this next episode does it really start to take off exactly like you just said. So, yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's, like you said, Season 1 had a lot of heavy hitters at the beginning. This one, they backloaded this season. Season 2's second half, much stronger than its first half. And I sat down and talked with you about it just a little bit, and I think that it's Vision Season 2 is over the watermark of I liked it more than I disliked it, and by quite a bit. It's just it had these beginning hiccups, but like you said, the next episode, I Am Your Mother, it really hits off on a good note, and it comes at you with the funniest episode. It comes at you with a lot of comedy. And I felt like that was a really
tons
good
of
palate
Easter
cleanser
eggs
to head into the next ones.
Yeah, there's this Aardman Studio, the
heavy.
people who make Wallace and Gromit out of England. I don't know exactly where they're at, but
nope, you're right.
Yeah,
England.
yeah.
Yep,
Wallace and Gromit is getting to be an age-old people that really like.
Right.
And the same studio made this Star Wars one. And if you want to talk about relating to Star Wars, this is where it's at. I don't think it gets better.
This one feels like it could fit right into the universe.
Yeah.
You could put it immediately in.
What planet does this take place on?
I don't know. I don't think. Is it specified? I think it is specified, actually.
I'm
I
just
don't
drawing
have
a
that
blank.
in
It's
my
almost like
notes.
Corellia almost or something, I want to say. But
I will look. You're right. It is specified, I'm pretty sure.
But the point I want to make
ahead.
is like this looks like it could take place on Tatooine or Coruscant or a planet we've seen. It looks like any other place in the Star Wars universe. It's like you could be watching a main story of the Bad Batch or some other main Star Wars property, and then you turn your head to the right. Well, it takes place with Wedge Antilles running it, so not Bad Batch. But my point still, what I'm making is, you're turning your head, and here's this story taking place alongside of everything else going on.
Right, right. And they mention the New Republic. They give you a firm time on where it is and where what's going on. And so the story is fun, but like you said, the Easter eggs are there. I laughed out loud through most of the show. I mean, there were super funny moments. The little bitty Death Star,
all the
on
little
bad
character
guy ship.
design, and another thing, you can see the expertise of the craftsmanship of not only of all the characters on this stuff, but making a Star Wars TV show for children. You know, the whole message was geared toward, you know, your parents know what you're talking about. The bad guys were these buffoonish oafs, who are also arrogant and all these other stuff. And so the craftsmanship on this one from every level was top notch. It is the best episode of Vision Season 2. It's in the top one or two or three. It's in the top, right?
Okay. I really like it. I think it was great. Like you said, lots of Easter eggs. I was listening to another podcast. I totally got to credit them because I did not catch it on my watch through. I saw it after I listened to theirs. In that there's a scene. It's Blast Point's podcast, by the way. Awesome podcast. There's a scene where Luke's lightsaber is in the background, and Maz Kanata's hand comes up and grabs it away.
Oh, that's
off-screen.
hilarious.
It was super funny. You have to go back and watch it because that alone. You got to watch this one twice. Get the story, see everything happening in the front, and then ignore all of that the second watch through.
Dude,
and just
watch the background. Yeah, there's so much in these. That's what I'm saying. The Aardman Studios are so clever. They care so much about what they're doing that they're making it not just for a children perspective. They're making it for us too.
Yes, I agree. And Dennis Lawson coming back, the original actor of Wedge Antilles in the original trilogy. That's super cool. He came back for The Rise of Skywalker. It's fun that he's still involved. Also, fun fact is Ewan McGregor's uncle. But this whole story was fun. They just told this story of no matter where you're from in the galaxy, you can be the hero. The same kind of story we get from Star Wars all the time. Really, really liked it.
And your parents know what they're talking about. I mean, it's not 100% true, but I mean,
right.
Listen to your parents. They care about you.
Yep. I thought it was great. I have nothing but good things to say about I Am Your Mother. This next episode, Colin, you had texted me and said this one was your favorite, and I'm not holding you to that anymore because I know with time all of these shift around. But you had originally texted me this was your favorite. You watched Vision Season 2 a little ahead of me. I actually watched it over 3 days, just parsing it out into chunks. And you had watched them all immediately back to back. And so I think that might have given us also a little different read and feel on them. But you said Journey to the Darkhead, Studio Mir out of South Korea, was your favorite at the time. What did you like about it that gave you that knee-jerk gut reaction? This is my favorite.
So this one is a huge contrast to the first 3 episodes. We got to, and then even the episode before the first. I Am Your Mother is whimsical. It's geared towards children. It's not dark and gritty or anything, and so like I Am Your Mother contrasts sharply with Journey to the Darkhead. It starts out in these 1,000-foot tall dark side and light side Jedi statues. They have this really deep concept of being able to look and see into the future with how the raindrops interact with the stones or where they're at. There's a time skip. Just the way all the characters are designed and they talk and interact with each other. And then the antagonist is extremely scary looking. He's flying a ship akin to what we saw from the Elder in season 1. And there's a planetary atmospheric dogfight sort of thing where the characters are running from each other. Another Jedi, I skipped ahead, is his master is killed by the Sith that pursues them later, and he even says, "Seek me out when you're ready." The Sith character isn't some merciless head chopper. He is like the Sith dude trying to cultivate a powerful apprentice or something, right? And just the breadth and depth of this story, and is phenomenal. The scenes with the lightsaber fights, like in the Sith episode, the lightsaber fight is literally one or two scenes, and it's almost in contrast to this, you could say non-existent. And the Jedi Sith confrontation that culminates this episode is bona fide Star Wars. I mean, you can't get around it. It's a lightsaber fight that takes place on speeding vehicles and atop 1,000-foot tall statues. And oh my gosh, I get lost talking about this episode, how fun it was.
This episode had a really deep Old Republic feel for me, with the references to a Jedi and Sith war, and it was a grand, big journey to save everything. Like you said, that final lightsaber fight was fun, and it had the 3-character dynamic, and, everything looked Star Wars, it felt Star Wars. And really, this episode may be the only one of two, perhaps three, but one of few that I felt gave a super interesting and a canonical kind of look and take on the Force. That the Force is meaningful with the light side in it, and also the dark side is the corrupted element of the light side, but both still exist. There's no getting rid of either. We have Clone Wars episodes about this with Yoda discovering how to be a Force ghost. Return of the Jedi is about this concept. Just understanding that while there is dark side in everybody, that the light side still exists and still prevails is obviously a super interesting story to me, and super story I want to continue to be told in Star Wars. And this one told that story. And so I really, really liked it. And that was my big takeaway, was how good that their commentary on the Force was.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. Yeah, in contrast to like even season 1, this episode drew you in at the very beginning and kept me entertained throughout the full 15, 20 minutes that it was on. In season 1, some of them dragged out, and like I said, repeat myself again, the first 3 episodes, it contrasts that one heavily, and this one's head and shoulders above.
I agree. It was really good. The next one continues to be strong for me. Going into this, or after this episode concluded, going into it, I did not think it was going to be my favorite, the episode about dancing. 2, and it isn't my favorite, but it wasn't going to be one of my favorites, and it's top 3 for me. But also, I thought afterwards, I was like, I loved that, but I bet I'm in the minority. I bet this one's going to get some hate online. And it didn't seem to. I mean, it didn't get the, what people were jumping and shouting about the Bandits of Golok or Screecher's Reach, as those are, just standouts. But this one, there wasn't a bunch of hate for it, which I was happy about because I really liked it. It was The Spy Dancer by Studio La Cachette, I think is how you say that. I put a Spanish accent on it, but it's a French studio. So I probably did say that wrong. La Cachette. I don't know. I can't do a good French accent.
Yeah, we're locked into doing Spanish stuff. We can't help it.
And so I thought the art was really neat. It was not my favorite art, but the story was really fun because it felt like it could take place in Star Wars once again. The cabaret felt like it was in the universe, and it told this small, independent story about how the Empire affected that individual, affected the main character, affected the spy dancer. And the twist at the end, I never saw it coming. I really didn't. It got me until the very end, when she was having dialogue hinting at it. When at the very end with the hinting dialogue is when I got it, with the eye patch and everything else. But it was, I really, really enjoyed this episode just because of the personal story it told.
Yeah, this one really tugs on the heartstrings once you find out what the ending is. And, can we spoil it? Do you want to,
Oh, yeah. If people are listening to this, they've either watched them or they do not mind spoilers.
So, this is, I don't know have you seen Inglourious Bastards? You know what that movie is?
Yes.
Okay, so It takes place in France, and not dancers, but it's a fantastical thing, a movie theater, and a bunch of Nazis are killed. And so, I mean, you can draw some pretty easy parallels to this, where entertainers are attempting to lure in fascistic oppressors and kill them. And so that doesn't happen in this. And you're sitting there like, you had the perfect opportunity. As the watcher watching this episode, you had the perfect opportunity. Why didn't you do it? You had them dead to rights and all this other stuff. And so that happens like, what, halfway in? So that's what really enthralled me about this. That and the K2 droids, the KX droids, right? I really like those. So so that had me going really good. But then I'm like, what in the world is going on? Because at first it's just dancing. I'm like, I don't really want, I love dancing. And the art was really good in here, but it's like, why am I watching this? What's compelling about this? But then it hits you like a ton of bricks. And I was sitting there at the edge of my seat. I perked up out of my chair. I'm like, what's going on here? Because, the protagonist stopped at the last second, and the rest of her compatriots haven't got the message yet, are still trying to kill the Imperial commander. And so a big fight ensues, and at the very end, she figures out that the Imperial commander is her stolen son from when he was a baby. And I'm telling you, Carter, the room was really dusty. Something else, I think of my children, how I would feel in this situation. It is something that tugs at your heartstrings in a major way. It was
an emotional
phenomenal job on this episode.
I was a big fan.
Really slamming the brakes on me and pulling me out of my chair to draw me into this. So fun.
Mm-hmm. And we had this cool run. We had the comedy in I Am Your Mother. We had the action in Journey to the Dark Head. And then we had this really emotional tale with the Spy Dancer. They really started to hit a good stride here. And they roll into my favorite episode. The one I'll confidently say is my favorite episode next. That kind of combines the emotion, the action, and the comedy. I thought that it hit all three of these notes. It was a good mix of all of them. And that was The Bandits of Golok. It was by 88 Pictures, and it was out of India. This one was super fun. I really enjoyed it. You had the train scene, which is every time a train shows up in Star Wars, it's going to be cool. We got the train in The Mandalorian. We got the train in Solo. There are other trains that I can't remember right now that I know exist. But trains in Star Wars always mean it's going to be good.
Yeah, we just had a train in Mandalorian. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Trains are good. I love trains.
It's a good story device.
And
trains are a good story device because it's a timed destination. You know that there's a set time and you're stuck on a certain path.
Right.
And so it's really easy. But always, there's always the chase through the train. So the train scene was cool, but everything about this episode was cool. This brother and this sister headed to a promised land that their father told them about. All they've got to do is evade the Empire. All they've got to do is get to this safe haven, and the train is the end of the journey. But then the train gets attacked by raiders, and then the Empire's there. And there's, this is obviously during the dark times, and so the child uses the Force, and all of the passengers on the train are leveling accusations at her, saying, we saw what you did. And it's just like this neat, she as a Force user is being persecuted, and it's neat to kind of see from her random perspective. It's like this is the girl who the path helped. Like this is the reason the path exists. This episode felt like it would have fit into the Star Wars canon, and so I really liked it. When they get to the end, when they get to their destination and that Inquisitor shows up, he was fearsome, he was interesting, he had a cool accent, he had a good look to him. It was super fun to see, and it was really cool to see the old woman Jedi fight him, defeat him, and then be able to take this child and take her on the path that she needs to go on, her brother willfully letting her go. It was just all really well put together, and it was like a direct parallel to Screecher's Reach. It was like the opposite side of the coin. The friends told Doll in that one that she's cool to go. The brother had to give the sister permission, essentially, to go. It was just, the whole thing was a neat little parallel, I thought.
No, yeah, I really can't build on what you said. I can't imagine being in the brother's shoes And after having, I mean, because he really struggled for the safety of his sister on the train, evading stormtroopers and evading the raiders, navigating stealthily throughout the town to their little oasis, maintaining composure in the face of an inquisitor, and for his and then rightfully so for his sister to embark on her journey alone or with the Jedi and leave him behind. I mean, what would you do in that situation? That's not a situation I want to face personally, for sure.
No, you're totally right. I have no idea. It's emotional, and it's, like I said, it combines the comedy, the action, and the emotion that I wanted to see, and I thought it did a good job of that. And like I said, it gets a +1 because it felt like it could have, like I could pinpoint where this takes place in the Star Wars universe if it were to happen. The next episode was a little bit of a sag on this, continuing increasing quality roller coaster. I did not jive with the pit that much. I also, I mentioned a couple times discourse in like Star Wars communities. I haven't seen a lot of discourse about this episode in bad or good, so I don't know. I'm not saying it's forgettable, but I am saying that I don't know if it's if it was hitting right where it should have. And it's super interesting that I'm saying all of this because the studio that made it was a collaboration between an American-owned studio in Tokyo named, probably going to butcher this one, but D'Art Stagio. And it was a collaboration between D'Art Stagio and Lucasfilm. Like, Lucasfilm had a direct hand in making this one, unlike all of the others. And so when I learned that fact, I was actually even more like, wow, how did I not like this episode that much? But it kind of fell flat for me.
This could have. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it could have been when I watched it. We had a late night out celebrating our buddy Red's 21st birthday party. We went to dinner and had some drinks, and so I watched this when I got home from that. And so that might have influenced it. So I might need to go revisit this one.
Well, this one is it's dark, not only literally. It's hard to see things in this episode.
Oh, it is visually, it is tough to see. And that's the point partly, but it was too tough to see.
But it
felt like I was watching Game of Thrones.
It's also very dark, literally, in a sense of the Empire is as oppressive as they've ever been, it seems like, in this one. Mm-hmm. They conscript and enslave a group of citizens to dig a pit, the titular pit, to find kyber crystals. And once the dig is complete, the Empire turns back and walks away, leaving the slaves in the pit. And I don't remember the main protagonist's name. He scales the very daunting. I don't know if we're given the
protagonist's name in this. I don't think we're given his name.
Continue your commentary, but I don't think somewhere. So. But he goes and seeks help. It's extremely hard for anybody to believe him, and he gets, I forget the exact roundabout way, but he falls down into the pit. I think the Empire pushes him in, and he dies. The protagonist dies. And so I think it's presumed that the townspeople were able to save the slaves in the pit. And this is also a really contrasting thing. The city, I think it's also implied that the city was built off the backs of these slaves, right? Or was
like
enhanced,
out of Kyber.
Enhanced somehow.
From what I got.
And so, or the riches of selling the Kybers. Somehow the city benefited from these slaves. And so there's a really good contrast of the townsfolk.
This guy's name is Crux.
Crux, yeah, that's Crux. Exactly right. That might have been something that you saw in, the subtitles or something.
I think it was subtitles or credits, because I really don't remember him having a name. Anyway, that's not important.
Yeah, right.
Continue your analysis.
And so there was like the townsfolk saved these slaves, and that's a really wholesome theme at the end of the darkest episode in all of Visions, I'll say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I agree. It had you really said it all. The way the Empire behaves has big Andor vibes. Like, it's the worst we've ever seen the Empire. I mean, the pit feels like Narkina, just a different kind of allegory. Like you hit the note that it was dark visually. Like, you got me. You got all the points. It really sums it up. And that, it can be summed up simply, and I don't know. I really liked Andor, but it just, for some reason, this episode did not do it for me. Right. But that's okay, because I think Visions ended on a pretty high note. I would not say this one was my number one, The Bandits of Golok, but it could have been number two. And that is Ow's Song by Triggerfish, a studio out of South Africa. And I just liked a bunch of stuff in this. It is so pretty. It is like beautifully shot, and it is not stop motion. It is 3D that they made look like stop motion. 3D animation that they were drawing these frames of and made it look like stop motion, and that was awesome. I thought that was super cool because it looks so 3D and so real. I was very visually impressed with this episode, a lot.
That's almost an understatement how good this episode looks.
It's so visually pleasing. The colors are nice throughout the whole episode. Colors have a lot to do with this episode. But the whole thing had a lived-in feel. It felt like Star Wars. It felt like the High Republic, honestly. And it really felt like the High Republic because I think the reason I like this episode the much is it had a new and unique Force commentary on the way the Force works, but it felt like it fit in the Star Wars universe to me.
Yeah, so the premise of this episode was, I think this episode even have, not literally, but it had a crawl of text at the start telling about...
Yeah, that was also good. That got me at the very beginning. I was like, I'm probably
So it sets the premise for the episode that the planet has kyber crystals, similar to Ilum, I guess you'd say, or some other kyber-rich planet, like Jeddah maybe, I don't know. But some event took place, which I don't recall, that a Sith corrupted all of the crystals. And so the populace of the planet, with the aid of the Jedi, exists to uncorrupt and harness, mine these kyber crystals from this planet.
They mine them. They give them to the Jedi. The Jedi uncorrupt them, but in a arduous process.
Arduous, painstaking,
very difficult.
Yeah. Not a simple task. And so, right there in the opening crawl is a really deep concept that is so fun to explore. And then we get to do it from a child's perspective of, and this is another thing that's so fun about Star Wars, is that the primary inhabitants of this planet, it reminds me of what would we see in Bad Batch, Paku, where
Pabu.
Yeah. It reminds me of Pabu, where they are citizens of the galaxy, but they live in their simple ways that they're not jaded by or something. I'm not saying they're Amish or Quakers or something like that, where they shun the exterior world or something like that, but they are satisfied in going and fishing for their meat and farming, with like an integrated community. Like me and you don't go farm. We're not out hunting for our stuff. We go to the grocery store and stuff. These people have like this inclusive community in a sense of it's this wholesome oneness that you don't get to see like Dayu or something like that. Where it's just like city or Coruscant, where it's just city and nobody cares about each other. They're just
what it really reminded me of. What it really reminded me of were like the caretakers on Octo in the sequels.
Right.
There's that whole species that exists to caretake the Jedi Temple planet where the Jedi started, and that's all they do. And they were basically just waiting around for Luke to return. Even when he returns, he's kind of just in their way, and they are just they exist to maintain that. And that's the exact same approach that Oz's father takes, in that he is like, it is our life mission, it is our purpose to mine these and give them to the Jedi. And he cares so much about this goal. And it's really, really neat. He even says Oz was the first of her species to ever even leave the planet, which is super cool, because they set this up to feel like something that's been going on for a while.
Right.
And they give you, in just a short amount of time, make it feel like this is a historic thing, and this is a brand new corner of the galaxy. But the Force, the way they approach the Force in this episode is what got me. This is what captivated me. We have two concepts of the Force that we've gotten in canon. where we have the pureness of a crystal being corrupted, and then it can be discorrupted. It can be brought back to the light. We have that concept married with the concept they've been talking about a lot in the High Republic, in that the Jedi and Force users perceive the Force in different ways, and that the Force can be perceived by some as like a song. And they marry these two concepts, where the main character is able to discorrupt crystals by using her voice. And it's dangerous because she's, surging them and then turning them to the light. And so it sears her father at the beginning. But the whole point of marrying those two ideas that we've gotten in canon of the Force and giving us this really neat, unique story was what really sold this episode for me.
Yeah, you couldn't have said it better, Carter. I mean, that's really what does it. And the only thing I want to add is that this is a really good story of a parent with a child who has a hidden talent that poses an unknown risk to the community. I mean, because like you said, she sings and it sears her dad as he's holding a corrupted crystal. And it's only at the end, through basically a trial of her trying to be around her father. She has to traverse the terrain. It's a very hilly planet. Reminds me a lot of the planets we see in the video game we're playing right now, Fallen Order, or no, Survivor. Yeah, where you can't just walk anywhere. You got to jump, climb, and
right.
Use your tether to get anywhere. But the climax of this episode is really cool. Al, she sings really loud, and it discorrupts a plethora of crystals, if not the whole planet. I wasn't exactly clear on that, and the whole thing is really cool.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. This was a really good way to cap off the end of Vision Season 2. I liked Vision Season 2. I did not have a problem with it. I had, a couple of the episodes, they had issues for me, and I know that they connected with other fans. And so that's the only thing you can ask out of something like this. When you get 9 super unique stories, there's no way all 9 of them are going to connect with you. If all 9 of them, if someone's saying all 9 of them connected with them, or all 9 of them were just knock it out of the park, then I don't know if they're taking a critical enough look at them. Not even to say they need to agree with me. Someone could come back at me and say they hated the Bandits of Golok and they loved In the Stars. And I've heard a bunch of praise for In the Stars. It's just really, I think that when you take a look at Vision Season 2, you can really enjoy the season and admit that it might not every single episode might have landed for you as a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, Star Wars is for everybody, right?
Exactly. Star Wars is for everybody. And there's no prereq out there to say you have to like every single thing in Star Wars to be a Star Wars fan. Like, if someone tells you that, that's just wrong. Do I like generally most Star Wars things that come out? Yeah, I'm more amicable than some fans. That doesn't mean that I'm more of a Star Wars fan than somebody else. There are people who I would say are Star Wars fans who just like the original trilogy. I would say that they might not have a good, I don't know, that they might not really be exploring Star Wars because I think there are other stories to enjoy in this vast galaxy, but I would never say they're not any less Star Wars fans than I am.
Very well put, and I'll echo your sentiments exactly. So we've talked about all 9 episodes of Vision Season 2, and we've had some, I think, very compelling discussion. You've improved my opinion on several episodes, I'll say. What
Good.
is your number one still the Bandits of Golak?
Yeah, I'd say Bandits of Golak, Ao's Song, and Bandits of Golak, Ao's Song, and probably The Spy Dancer are my top 3.
Right. Yeah. So, to put my top 3, number 1 is Journey to the Darkhead. It really just, it's such a compelling story the whole way. I Am Your Mother next, and then I'll say The Spy Dancer after that.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. I'm happy that we can have such different opinions on these too.
Very good.
But this was super fun. I had a good time recording the meat of this episode. But we're going to move on into our next segment now, Colin, because I'm super excited about this segment today. This segment is How the Force Works. and we're going to hop into it right now.
That's not how the Force works.
So, Colin, this is how the Force works. The way the segment works is we take a question from a patron at the Jedi Knight level or above. We ask it on here, or they ask us the question, and we answer it. And so this question was submitted by Tristan Franks, and I thought it was a really good question. He asks, if you could create a film about any period in Star Wars history, what would it be and why?
So, we saw this question before, and I've had a little bit of time to think about it. Do you want to go first, or would you like me to?
My head was spinning when I heard this one because I just immediately was like, oh, I'd love to tell this story or this story or this story or this story. And so I want you to go first because if you take mine, I'm going to hop on a different one.
Okay. No, so that's fine. And I don't think, if I had to bet money, I bet you could guess what story I want to tell, in a sense, right?
I bet I can.
And
So, it was
so
the first place my head jumped.
I've even thought about how my story would start. And so I'll tip my hand right now. I was disappointed when I heard Rogue Squadron was canceled. I read a lot of commentary on it. And
oh, wow. This is not where I thought we were
okay,
headed.
that's fine. That's fine.
I'm super excited to hear.
So somebody had described it as Top Gun in space or something like that, right? So where my movie starts is there is a potential Imperial recruit standing behind a guy on Corellia. He says, you hear in the background, this guy's like looking at his iPhone or something, or a pad, or off in the distance, whatever. And you hear in the background, oh, Solo. And the guy walks away, and this other guy walks up, says, I want to join the Imperial Navy. I'm going to be a pilot. So you see where I'm going with this? The guy's standing right behind Han Solo. And, call him Suture Fell or make up another name for him. But I want the anti-Han Solo, the guy who sticks with being a pilot, is a ruthless Red Baron type ace for the Empire, just blowing rebels out of the sky or something like that. That's probably too harsh of a story to tell. I don't know. If they're making this, what we talked about in the Vision Season 2, some dark stuff, and there's some animated shorts out there you can find on YouTube of Imperial pilots doing stuff. And of course, like I mentioned, Suture Fell is an Imperial character that had a bunch of comics made in the past. This is the question is, what movie would I make? This is the movie I would make. I don't know if it would be compelling for a broad audience or whatnot, but I think that would be a really good hook if you introduced it that way and made some sort of hard contrast to the wholesome heroes and that we get to see in Fight for the Rebels. You know what I'm saying? That's the movie I would make.
That is awesome because I think it's a super cool concept. There's been a bunch of stories about pilots, but we never want to run.
There's pilots in every Star Wars. Poe Dameron, Luke Skywalker,
right,
Darth Vader,
right.
Anakin
it's an
Skywalker.
Intrinsic part of Star Wars. And really what the first place my mind jumps when you say that is, George Lucas loved the dogfighting in World War II, like the thought of it, the concept, so much that's what he did in A New Hope and in the original trilogies. He wanted to have these cool space dogfights. And then where my head really goes is George Lucas made that film in the early 2010s, maybe late 2000s. I think it was early 2010s, called Red Tails, about the Tuskegee Airmen, the first all-black flying squadron in the U.S. Army at the time during World War II. And so I really like Red Tails. It's a really good George
I haven't
Lucas
seen
movie.
it, but the historical thing is amazing.
Yeah, you
God
need to
bless
see
those
it. I mean,
pilots.
it's a complete George Lucas doing his love of airplanes and his love of telling stories like that, basically, just out in full focus. And so I think that, just thinking about what kind of story George would want to still tell in Star Wars, I would bet he'd like to go in a direction like yours. If he could just tell a side story and not have to stick with the Skywalkers, but he could just put the passion that he put into Red Tails back into a Star Wars story, it sounds like he would do something like that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a good concept that we're, Star Wars. Let's see a war amongst the stars.
Yeah, no, that's a good hook. When I first heard this question, I was all over the place. Like I said, I mean, my head jumped to tons and tons of options. I mean, I considered a story in the High Republic. I considered a story about Grogu, past, in the future, Grogu as a Jedi Knight or a Master. I considered a post-sequel movie that they're coming out with, soon with Charmin Obaid-Chinoy. And so this concept was super exciting to me because my head went 1,000 different places. But what I really settled on was, and Dave Filoni's stealing my idea, but just landing in between the original trilogy and the sequels and telling a big story with the original trilogy. I mean, I assume this question is not a movie that I can make right now, given the age of the cast or whatever. And honestly, I would be fine with recasting. If I had to make the movie right now in 2023, Alden Ehrenreich's coming in as Han Solo, and the actors that they got to play, the actor that they got to play Luke in The Mandalorian is coming in without the face CGI, and Billie Lourd, Carrie Fisher's daughter, is hopping in there to play Leia. And we're not gonna do the face CGI thing because I don't want to see how that would play out in a 2.5-hour movie. We're just gonna tell a story with the new gang, and it doesn't have to be the Heir to the Empire Timothy Zahn story. I've got that story on the brain right now, but it doesn't have to be that. And so I just really think we can push into a really fun story and still leave the sequels where they're at. I don't want to touch the sequels. I think that I don't have near as big a problem with sequels as some fans do. I think that they're fine movies, and I don't want to just go in and erase them. I would just like to tell another story about the original trio right there in between those two film sagas.
Yeah, and in reality, the possibilities of what we have from existing stuff that's been hinted at is almost limitless. Like stuff that we know that's going to happen. Lando Calrissian by Donald Glover. Hello, where's that at? I want it yesterday. What happens with Maul's Crimson Dawn? Right? Mm-hmm. They should make, I'm sorry, but they need to do it right and make a Solo 2 or something like that.
I know. We need to.
I want to see what happens with Kira and all those characters. And then, I mean, I think this could also end up being a bait question. Because there's so many positive ways you could take this. You ask different fans this and be like, I want to see Luke Skywalker's Jedi Order and da-da-da-da-da. Well, I would love to see that too. But, that's playing with a different set of building blocks than what we get than what we're allowed to play with, Mm-hmm. And so, though, like I said, I would love to see that. I guess write your own fan fiction or something, because
right. I mean, we have that story. It's in Legends. I would love to see that story on the screen, but it does exist. The Legends material is there. It is super good. We are currently reading a Legends book for our book club. I mean, it's there. And then the story exists.
Even then, I still think there is more to do with Luke Skywalker, given the book we talk endlessly about, Shadows of the Sith.
So you can still tell a compelling Luke, Leia, and Han story. Yeah. It is not gone forever.
Yeah, I think the building blocks are there to do to do right by the fans. If even that is what Disney wants or what we desire, like maybe some subconscious thing, the building blocks are there to make a good story, and let's see it.
Yep, I agree. I totally agree. Thank you so much, Tristan, for that How the Force Works question. We really appreciate it. It was an awesome question. You did a great job asking it, and so thank you very much. We're going to roll into our next segment, and that segment, Colin, is the HoloNet News.
You made the HoloNet.
So we've got a few interesting stories on our docket to talk about here. We'll open it up, relating it to the meat of this podcast, that Visions is getting a third season. Third season is already in development. It has only been a week since that season premiered, but they've already greenlit the next one.
Yeah, that has me pumped. The more studios, the more storytellers that get to make what they want is so compelling. It's so enthralling. I mean, and then, like I said, there's not all the stories were 100%. And we got 2 seasons now. Pick any TV show. There's so many of them, and I know this isn't an expressly a TV show that's serialized or has recurring characters, but they're able to grow and learn. Most TV shows, by their 3rd or 4th season, hit their stride. I have no reason to think that won't be any different from aspiring studios who want to make their own vision story.
Yep, I agree. I don't have anything other to say than I'm also pumped for it. I totally agree with you. Our next piece of news has, I think, 2 interesting tidbits that we need to talk about in it. This is Kathleen Kennedy gave an interview to Empire on May the 4th, just talking about future projects. You know, Celebration was just last month, so it's not like we're getting some big, hard-hitting, brand-new news out of this interview. If they're going to announce anything, it's going to be at Celebration, and not just in an Empire article on Star Wars Day. But there are some little juicy news tidbits in here. The first of which is that Kathleen Kennedy said she's looking to James Bond for how to eventize Star Wars movies. And what she means by that is, you know, taking a break every few years and then doing a few Star Wars movies, and then taking a break and then doing some Star Wars movies. Like how James Bond goes away for a little while and then comes back to the theater.
What this says to me is that Kathleen Kennedy is listening to our podcast, because several episodes ago we made this exact point.
Yep. I mean, you're right. We talked about this, and it's true, and I'm happy that this is the case. I'm happy that she's saying, you know, we need to have a little break in between, because Star Wars does not need to be this big blurred line. You know, I go to this a lot. I have no ill feelings towards the MCU. I just watched Guardians 3. It was really good. This latest phase has not been where I want it to be. I mean, I haven't watched some of the movies, haven't watched the TV shows, because it's so much so fast. But Marvel is just one long, continuous 2008 to now. You know, we've had 1 year without a Marvel movie, and that was 2009. And every year since we've had a Marvel movie. And so every year of my life since 2008 has been filled with Marvel movies. And so Marvel doesn't feel like an event. It feels like a season of television on its 100th season. And that's a different vibe than what we want for Star Wars. The only thing I'd like to say is that Kathleen Kennedy, while referencing James Bond's a great film franchise, why wouldn't she reference Star Wars? You know, George Lucas eventized the movies. He did 3 years between each of them. George Lucas did, 20 years between the original trilogy and prequel trilogy. And that was not on purpose. That was not him holding this to eventize it. But really, it's just, I feel like she could have referenced the franchise itself for evidence of that instead of going to James Bond. No hate to James Bond or the MCU.
Right. Yeah. The only counterpoint I might make is that with comic book movies is they have just a vast array of source material that they can adapt into a movie. The characters and how there's 10 versions of every character from different universes. And we can go, I don't really want to go down that rabbit hole, but, Star Wars has such a ripe avenue for completely bespoke custom stories. Like I think the most prominent example is The First Jedi that we're going to get to see 25,000 years in the past, right? Or what Filoni and Favreau are making with Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Ahsoka, right? So, these are created from these individuals' minds. It isn't from the last, since the 60s or even going back to the 1930s, of plucking some influence of a specific character from 200 different writers' minds, So, I mean, and that's just to add to your point, right? We've talked about this before. There needs to be some time. And that, the other point I want to make is that, like, especially considering the Marvel movies, we are so blessed to live in the time that we do, that so many creative people are able to practice their craft. The downside of that is when so many people want to make movies of stuff that they loved growing up, we get what we see in the Marvel universe. It gets bloated and oversaturated. And exactly like with James Bond, that does go back to when they started making the books. When did those come out?
Oh, Bond's been around
mid-century?
obviously much longer than the MCU. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know about Marvel.
Well,
but,
comic books
yeah.
in general, but they started making those movies in the 60s, and they're still going strong. You know, some have had been better than others. Some of the actors have been better than others, but there's, you know, it's easy to point in a Marvel movie that people don't like. It's really hard to find a James Bond film going all the way back to the 60s that's just like, I don't know about that one.
That's
You have to
universally
really
disliked.
search, right? You got to make some reaches there.
Right.
But
I agree. That's a great point. That's
Yeah.
and I think you're totally right.
but there's so many people that want to make be in this sphere of making a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie or some sort of comic book based movie that Marvel's showing that they're getting bloated. That does not need to happen to Star Wars.
No, and the James Bond example, you know, that's again, I wish we were talking Star Wars, but with James Bond, you're right that character comes back. He's recast, but those stories don't feel stale. They've never felt like, you know, going to a new Daniel Craig James Bond movie never felt like, oh man, you know, it's going to be the same story that Sean Connery had, because it's not. It's always fresh, new storytelling ideas. Whereas in the Marvel Universe, people will complain about, you know, oh, here's another superhero origin movie. Or that, you know, they've wisened up and they barely make origin movies anymore. Origin movies are now like the origins in 15 minutes, and then there's different story to be told there because people have gotten burnt out specifically on origin stories. We saw that in the Mario movie, which is crazy enough that a lot of the really important, like, because that's what it is. Mario just discovers, you know, he gets these abilities and he discovers all this stuff in this new universe. And it's essentially a superhero origin. They gloss over a lot of really important, like, relationship building for the better because we've seen the superhero origin movie. We know how this goes. Let's get to the action. Let's get to the drama. Let's not rewatch the origin again and again and again.
Yep.
But there is a second half of this interview that I want to talk about, and that is Kathleen Kennedy says this statement. The First Order has fallen. The Jedi are in chaos. There's even a question how many exist anymore. And so we've got to dissect this. That, one, no First Order, no Imperial remnants. Like, it is, we are gone from the Empire. There is a new threat to the galaxy, which I'm very pleased about.
Right.
And then, are we in agreement that there's even a question about how many exist? That's talking about Ezra. I mean, it might be talking about Grogu. That's a maybe. That's kind of a hanging question mark. But I'm positive it's talking about Ezra. I think that Ezra will last through the sequels. He wasn't in, you know, Rey's ears in The Rise of Skywalker, so he's not dead. I think that is naturally they're talking about Ezra, and that we're going to get Ezra introduced.
How
into this
old
movie.
would Ezra be in this? Isn't he in his 70s or something?
No, 40 years, or 15 years after 34 BBY, and Ezra was born on Empire Day. So 15 plus 34, you get 49, and then you got to add 19 years to that. So Ezra would be, he'd be 68. Ezra would be 68.
Oh, that's two off. Okay. Well, still, that means he's going to be a very wise Jedi Master.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he would have to be a Jedi Master. He would have to be like wizened. They wouldn't be able to cast the same actor that they've cast for Ahsoka. That probably wouldn't be possible. But I do think that that's who they're talking about, and you know, Grogu as well. But I think Ezra more because Ezra doesn't have this giant hanging question mark above him. We know he's coming back in the Ahsoka series.
Good. What's next on the list?
The next one is a little bit of a two-parter because the story's developed over the week. And I think we're going to be talking a lot about these stories related to this. Tony Gilroy says the script for Andor Season 2 finale has been completed last week prior to the Writers Guild of America strike. And then a couple days ago, we got a story that said Tony Gilroy has stopped writing duties, but he was still on set as a producer for Andor. And now, yesterday, we've gotten a new report that says Tony Gilroy is not producing Andor. He is stepping off of the Andor set until the Writers Guild strike is over. And but Andor is still moving forward with production.
Oh, that's so. I mean, what does that mean exactly? I don't understand.
I am it means that, without the main writer, without the main producer, they're still going to be going through the script, still going to be filming scenes. We don't know what scenes are going to be filmed. We don't know if it's the heavy monologues, hopefully not, or if it's like some action scenes. But they're going to continue production. They're not going to let their strike slow them down. But that I don't like that, honestly. I'm against that.
It's a question mark or something on it.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it's they've halted production of Daredevil Born Again. They've halted production of other things. I don't think that, and I mean, I hope Bob Iger's listening to this. If we think Kathleen Kennedy's listening, hopefully Bob Iger's listening, because I don't want, Andor was so amazing in season 1. I don't want season 2 to fall off the rails because of their hesitancy to stop production. They should just stop production. I would rather have quality than have Andor meet whatever fake deadline they've put out there, whatever they've produced for the stockholders and said Andor will be out on this date. I would much rather get a quality story. So I'd rather them just negotiate the strike instead of going forward with a production without the guy who made season 1 what it was, without the mastermind behind season 1.
Right. I remember the last time the writer's strike occurred, and it devastated a lot of TV shows. Heroes was a serialized TV show.
I've heard about Heroes.
It
killed Heroes, right?
Yeah. It never recovered. And
did it get Battlestar Galactica, or am I misremembering?
I don't remember.
Okay.
It's going to be a while ago now, 2007 time frame or something like that.
Right.
And it doesn't feel like that way to me, but it feels like just the other day or last couple years. But
oh, you're talking about 16 years ago?
Yes, 16 years ago. Ugh, I'm gonna be sick. But it's a different world than back then, right? I mean, these guys are all smarter, and halting the production of a TV show until they can resolve these issues is definitely the right call, I think.
Right. These studios have been through this before, so I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to be a studio executive. I'm not going to pretend to be a writer. I don't want to sit here and say that that's the most important thing on the line. Obviously, people's careers are on the line. Like, there's more important things than the production of Andor, but I would like to see the production of Andor halted.
Yeah, right. And so, as an avid, enthusiastic consumer who wants the best product that can be delivered, we want that thing resolved in an amicable way that produces the best product. Not cutting corners, not hiring scabs or something like that that's going to produce a subpar product. Especially when it comes, Heroes, that was a throwaway show. I don't even remember anything that happened except people having silly powers. We don't Heroes my Star Wars.
Yeah, don't Heroes my Star Wars. Yeah, that's a good sentiment. All right, Colin, that wraps up the HoloNet news. And so, last segment, we're rolling into the end of the podcast. Let's go to the Star Wars moment of the week.
We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, Colin. So, I'm excited to talk about my Star Wars moment of the week, but let's hear what is your Star Wars moment of the week.
Sure. I think we briefly mentioned it at the very start of this podcast episode. And May the 4th, Young Jedi Adventures also came out that day. And previously to this, we've mentioned a little bit, was shorts. Little 2 or 3 minute blurbs on YouTube, like a Disney YouTube channel, or even on Disney Plus that you could see. But on the 4th came out, I think 9 or 10 episodes, 30-minute episodes of these Young Jedi Adventures. And so my son is interested in watching something else at the moment. I've tried to get him to watch it, but I was so blessed. I had my 6-month-old nephew over for a family event, and he's 6 months. There's not much this child does. He eats, he sleeps, he goes to the bathroom, and he'll look at you, and he'll look at the TV. He'll listen to music sounds from the TV. So I'm trying to get my son to watch Young Jedi Adventures. He was laying on the floor, and I was holding him throughout, or off and on. But he was, a 6-month-old, was enthralled by this Jedi Adventures. It warmed my heart. And I'll tell you what, Carter, obviously he can't tell what's going on. He's just, laser swords flying around or whatever his little 6-month-old brain thinks. But the Young Jedi Adventures is really good. There are some kid shows that are just really silly, especially if you go back and watch what you watch when you're a child or something. But this Young Jedi Adventures, there's some really quality ones out there like Bluey. There's also on Disney. It's kind of hard to meet that standard with a kid show, but it's not stupid, and it's Star Wars, and it's got Yoda in it, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Young Jedi Adventures.
I'm really happy that you enjoyed it so much. I'll check it out eventually. Maybe I'll have kids in the next few years, and we might watch that. But for now, I'm gonna take your word for it. But I am really happy that it's been so good for you so far, and that you've seen it and that you enjoyed it, and that's an awesome way. Like you said, he's young, he's a baby, but it was still a cool way for you to have this moment with your little nephew. So that's awesome. I'm very happy that you did that.
That's good.
I was, some weeks, Star Wars moment of the week, I have to call back in my memory. I'm like, what did I do this week that was Star Wars other than podcasting or watching the newest thing that came out? And some weeks, like this week, I am filled with things to talk about. We watched Visions. I began an Andor rewatch. I have been reading the Timelines book.
Still playing
Jedi Survivor. But the number one thing I feel like I've done this week is I've read a bunch of Star Wars. I'm currently reading like 6 Star Wars books.
Oh my goodness.
It's been awesome. I mean, I really do like when I'm at periods where I'm reading new Star Wars or where I'm rereading old Star Wars. I've been reading all kinds of Star Wars books. I've been reading the new High Republic book, Path of Vengeance. It's really good. I've been reading Aftermath Life Debt. Funnily enough, I've never read that. I've never read that book, and so I'm really excited to dive into it. And I'm listening to Victory's Price on audiobook. I'm reading the Darth Bane Path of Destruction book for our book club over on our Discord. I'm reading the Timelines book. I'm reading the Empire Strikes Back from another certain point of view book again before the Return of the Jedi one comes out. I'm doing some Star Wars reading, and I'm really, really enjoying it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's quite the endeavor you got there. Which one has captivated you the most out of those?
Well, so I'll say that I've been reading Life Debt for a while because I have it in my briefcase at work when I'm like got some random downtime that I'm killing between like a meeting or something. And so for a few minutes, I'll sneak a page here or there. And every time I return to it, I really like it, but it hasn't, I haven't had to continuously turn the page. The High Republic just continues to be really, really good, like every book. And this one is by Cavan Scott, who I already really think is an amazing author and who has already done a lot of the High Republic books. And so I've really gravitated towards Path of Vengeance. The Darth Bane book is awesome. I mean, it is phenomenal, but I'm just barely at the beginning of it. And so I need to dive further headfirst into it, but it's really captivated me also. So I've just had some really good time doing some Star Wars reading.
Well, I'll tell you what, you give me some really good goals to aspire for. I'm looking forward to that Darth Bane book.
Yeah, no, it's good. I can't wait for you to read it. I know that the people on our Discord have really been enjoying it. And so, if you're interested in joining the book club, then let us know and we'll let you know how to get connected because we're having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun doing the book club. And, Colin, while we're on the subject of Star Wars reading, we've got some exciting Star Wars reading coming up. We've got some plans for June that we're not going to reveal quite yet, but June is basically the Star Wars Station month of reading. I mean, it is our June podcasts are going to really take a dive into some good Star Wars literature. And so we're really excited to do that.
I'm so pumped.
It's going to be fun. And we've just, not just reading, I mean, we've got some other things involved with Star Wars literature that we're not going to reveal yet, but that we're really, really excited about. And so we hope you guys are going to continue to join us on that. We thank y'all so much for listening to this podcast. It's just a super fun hobby of ours, but you guys keep us going. Your 5-star reviews, the DMs on Instagram, the emails, everything is just super encouraging that we get from everyone who listens to us. We really appreciate it. And if you can support us, please go to Apple, go to Spotify, go to YouTube, subscribe, give us a 5-star review, like it, whatever it is. Just, continuing to promote us, telling your friends about us is a massive help.
Yeah, and this Saturday, we're recording our next RPG episode. It's going to take us a minute to produce it, but it's coming down the pipe fast. So
it is.
Tune in to this one because the story is only going to get better. It really is.
Like we said on May the 4th, we released our episode, The Wayward Wayfarers, Chapter 1. It's the Star Wars Real Play RPG podcast. We're having a lot of fun with it. We released the first episode on here. We are going to release the second episode for free. And we're super excited to share it with you guys. It'll be here on this timeline. So all you got to do is come to the regular feed and give it a listen. It's a lot of fun to put together. But after we release the next episode, it's going Patreon exclusive at the $2 tier. So for $2, you can get the video, the audio, and the continued story for the Wayward Wayfarers. We are super excited. Our friends have been having a great time. It's been awesome. And that's not the only thing you get when you go to Patreon. We've got a lot of Patreon rewards and tiers. We've got exclusive podcasts that you can check out on there. We've got ways for you to be involved in our show. We've got ways for you to submit topics and to Q&A with us and to get letters from us and to, play games with us and talk to us on, more than just in the Discord or more than just in the DMs. And we've got a lot of really, really fun ways to engage with Station Nation over there on Patreon. And so we really appreciate your guys' support there on Patreon. We appreciate your support by giving us likes on Instagram, on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram at starwars.station. You can find us on Twitter at SW_station. You can find us just all over the place on social media. We've got a Discord that you can check out at the link tree on our Instagram bio. We've got a Twitch that I've been streaming Jedi Survivor on. I've been streaming Jedi Survivor the whole time, all the way through. I am having a blast.
It's such a good story, isn't it? Can't wait to do
It's
the
an
podcast
amazing
show.
story. I know. It's going to be a lot of fun when we do that. And it's been super fun streaming, engaging with the community. The chat's always popping. It's super fun to talk in the chat there. I've been having a great time doing it. And so, guys, we just really appreciate your support and the way you engage with our community, the way you embrace the Star Wars station, and we can't thank you guys enough.
Yeah, thank y'all for listening so much. These are so fun to record. I love engaging with y'all. Yeah. Till next time, y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for listening. We're going to be back here, same place, same week, and until then, keep it wizard.